Well, that was one of the worst losses we've had for a very long time, which is going to make selection pretty interesting this week. So let's get into it. My name is Ari. Welcome back to the predicted 23 coming up against Gold Coast this week. Before we get into it, we want to hear from you. Let us know, do you agree, disagree in the comments. I love reading them every week. Last week, Mason Wood came in. I thought he would. Butler, I thought would come in, played twos instead. McLennan and Travalia came in, which I didn't pick. Out Howard, obviously, with the injury. Collard kept his spot. I thought he wouldn't. Stocker got injured later in the week at training, and Boxall got dropped as well. So, not the best week in terms of my predictions, but let's just get straight into this week. Here's the team. Coming in, Hunter Clark, Zach Jones, Ari Schoenmaker. Coming out, Jack Macrae, Lance Collard, Angus McLennan. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the ins first. Hunter Clark, 27 touches, 11 tackles, 6 clearances, 1 goal. I think he comes straight in and takes Macrae's spot. He'll go straight into the middle. I think people are really quick to write off Hunter Clark. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the injury history. Clearly, he's had some terrible luck with injury, but I think if he can get some continuity and some better luck, I think he can be a really good player for us. So I want to give him a good shot, especially while the opportunity's there with Macrae out with that punctured lung. To potentially even cement a spot in this side. So let's get him in and see how he goes. He's been playing well at VFL, especially this week. So let's see what happens for Hunter Clark. Zach Jones also coming in. I've got him slated as the sub, and I'll explain why. I just think that role is well suited to him. He comes on with a huge burst of energy, lifts everyone up. I just like him in that role. I haven't seen him play a full game in recent times where I've thought, gee, Zach Jones really played well today. Maybe, he just needs that opportunity, but I like him in the sub role, and I'd prefer to see Hunter Clark in the 22. However, I'm certainly not ruling out that Jones could, of course, be picked in the 22. In the VFL this week, he had 39 touches, 7 tackles, 9 clearances, 7 inside 50s. So just, a monstrous performance from him. So the next in, we've got Ari Schoenmaker. We're just crying out for another toll. I think in hindsight, Ross probably would have picked him over McLennan. Ari, he's earned his spot through the VFL. I think he flew up to Perth as that emergency anyway. So he comes in, shores up the back line, gives us the option to swing Caminiti forward if we want. So I like him in the side. He's definitely done the work, and hopefully we can see some improvements in that defensive element of his game. So coming out, obviously Jack Macrae with that punctured lung. Angus McLennan, I think, just comes out for Ari. He got subbed out, didn't have his best game, but, young player, goes back into the twos. And, he can earn that spot back, but I think Ari takes it this week. Collard, I really think he probably should have been dropped last week. He's just been down lately. Go plug away in the twos, get some confidence back. But ultimately, I really like what he showed in these last 2 months. Like, he's had some really good games, and I can totally see him in 2 to 3 years' time cementing a spot in the forward line alongside Jack Higgins. So unlucky this week, but he'll be back for sure. So who is in contention this week that I didn't pick? Hugh Boxall, obvious one, 30 touches, 7 tackles, 9 clearances, and a goal in the VFL. The reason I haven't picked him this week is I just think with a Macrae coming out, I think we want to inject some experience, an older player, or else the midfielder's looking really, really young. If it was a Philippou or a Garcia, I think you'd probably you'd probably put in a Boxall to replace them. But I think this week he's probably unlucky, but he'll certainly get another chance really soon. So I wouldn't worry about that. Angus Hastie, I've got as an emergency, 23 touches, 4 inside 50s, 3 marks in the VFL. Every week it looks like he's improving down there. So when a spot opens up for him, I think he'll be ready to go. Liam Henry's an interesting one. I'm going to read this straight from the VFL report on the website that just got posted. Quote, he's still getting back to full fitness and run, but we feel like he's turned the corner in that space, end quote. So interesting just how this has all played out. He came back into the side, subbed out at halftime, straight back into the twos. Hasn't made a lot of noise there, which is surprising just because someone of his talents, and we've come to expect a lot from him. He's been a really good player for us in the ones. So only the 16 touches, 5 tackles, 4 clearances. Like it's a decent game, but I think it sounds like they're still trying to get that injury, just trying to do some injury prevention with him almost. So I don't know what to expect from him. It sounds like potentially he'll be back soon, but they just want to keep having him chip away in the twos for now. So there's that. Dan Butler is obviously going to be an interesting one. I don't have any insight into this. This is purely my opinion. He could certainly get picked, especially to replace Collard this week. Just from reading the VFL report, though, it just doesn't feel like a week that he's going to come back in. They said, quote, had a quiet day by his standards after being played really closely by his direct opponent, was able to pop up late and get 2 goals, which was pleasing to see, end quote. So, it's hard to say. Kicking 2 goals in junk time, which was one of his 2 goals were off of his 3 kicks. So sounds like he didn't quite get a good run at it. And I just think they're probably going to want him to, have another week in there, get a proper run at it, and then come back into the side. In saying that, he could easily come back this week. That's just where I see that one going. I want to shout out Max Heath. 19 touches, 35 hitouts, 7 tackles, 6 inside 50s, 7 intercepts, and a goal. He is playing really good footy down there. I could potentially see him as a smoker coming in this week. I wouldn't be totally surprised to see him debut. I think it's well overdue. I've put him in the emergency slot just to reward the good footy he's playing down there. So, hey, you never know. Max Heath could debut this week, especially in a side that is just desperate for some height right now. So there is that. And Alex Taru is not available selection because he's still serving a suspension, but I believe he can play next week. With all the intricacies with the buys and whatnot, I'm not entirely sure how that one is playing out, but I believe next week he is available for AFL selection. So keep an eye on that. So, holding their spots. I had to take a deep breath in because I know this is going to be a contentious week. Some people are definitely going to want some senior players to be held accountable, and honestly, I cannot blame those people. But I'm going to talk through it. So, should there have been a bigger swinging of the axe? In my selections, maybe so. But I really think when you look at the numbers, you look at the game. I understand the eye test is very different to the numbers, but there's just not a senior player that I think can be dropped. Brad Hill is obviously the point of contention. People were talking about him a lot, and fair enough so these last 2 weeks. I'm usually find myself defending Brad Hill because I just think he cops unfair criticism, but the last 2 weeks he has been terrible. It just simply has been terrible. This week, 22 touches at 68%, doesn't sound too bad, but 3 frees against, 6 clangers, some of his ball use decision making was just not there, as we talked about on the podcast this week. However, I still just don't think he's going to be dropped. If he was, in the past, if he was, I probably would have been, kind of annoyed about it. This week, if he does, honestly, I think it would be fair enough. I just can't see Ross doing it, I really just can't see that happening. So maybe I'll be proven wrong, but that's just where I stand with that. Travalia holds his spot. I think he actually goes into the 22 as well, gets some youth in there. Played okay as the sub, didn't really get a fair go at it though. Only came on at the end of the 3rd, I believe. O'Connell and Max Hall, I think, are just holding on to their spots right now, but they're going to want to lift a little to when some reinforcements come back to make sure that they hold on to it. Sharman and Owens, I don't think are in danger of being dropped, but I thought both of them were pretty poor on Sunday, so they would both be wanting to lift, along with Mason Wood. Very rare bad game coming back from injury, so he definitely gets a break, but I expect him to bounce back for sure. So, interesting week at selection. A lot to talk about. Let's go over the team real quick before I wrap up, though. So, from the full back line, Ari Shoalmaker, Anthony Caminiti, Jimmy Webster. From the half back line, Nasai Wangani Malira, Callum Wilkie, Jack Sinclair. On the wings, Darcy Wilson and Bradley Hill. On the half forward line, we got Max Hall, Mason Wood, Mitch Owens. Full forward, Garcia, Sharman, Higgins. In the middle, we've got Philippou with Steele and Clark, and Marshall supporting them as the ruck. On the bench, Travalia, O'Connell, Burns, Windhager. Jones as the sub. Emergencies, Max Heath, Hugh Boxall, and Angus Hasty. So let's see what happens this week. Very interesting. I know, boys, please just bounce back. That was terrible on Sunday. So hopefully we'll be in happier spirits next week. But until then, go the Saints.